Just now seeing. Hi.
Hello. I'm finally out for a walk, so for
Wonderful.
myself.
Pamela Gold. We don't have your audio yet.
This is so
There you are.
Melanie.
Yay!
Oh my
I'm
goodness. Oh my,
so stoked.
oh my goodness. Melanie and my dad, Tanya was
I know.
on.
I'm wearing my Give Love.
I love it. Hold on. Wait. I gotta show you.
Yes.
Love is the answer. Love is the answer. Give
Yes.
and
Beautiful.
Tanya is joining, I think, which is awesome. My
Bar
dad,
and Grill.
Bar and Grill. Perfect. Melanie Curtis. So, okay, we're going to curse today.
Perhaps. Or not. You just never know. It just the scope it needs to be allowed.
He needs to put on headphones. So there's children in the room. Melanie and I tend to drop some bombs because we're
Just
authentic.
keep it real. Just keep it real.
Shelby,
That's all we do.
Shelby's a nurse. She's a dear friend of mine who's a nurse.
Wonderful.
So
Hi, Shelby.
Shout out to all of our first responders and emergency workers that, it's such a strange time in like every way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what a opportunity. Melanie, so for people who don't know, Melanie and I used to do this every week.
Every week.
Every week, Melanie and I would have a different topic.
Yeah.
Talk. And then I opened HACKD.
Mm-hmm.
And then I no longer had time to do anything.
Yeah.
And
all those episodes still exist.
Still exist. So
they're all out there. They're
great job. I was thinking of you and how you produced them with the thing in the bottom. So I'm going to have someone do that for these going.
Yes, I can help you do that too. I'm super easy.
Now it's just this whole pivot, right? So just 5-second catch up, just to catch you up, Melanie, because obviously up until 2 weeks ago, I was running a bricks and mortar gym, and that was what consumed me. And now, obviously, that is not a thing. I've been focused on making sure that my team is cared for, so making sure that my people are cared for, anyone in my community who's been sick, making sure they're cared for, and then saying, okay, how can I be of service during this time, which is pivoting to creating online content, because
of course
that's all we can do right now. That's all I can do is as little as it sounds, just to create online content that hopefully the intention is inspire, empower, support, educate, right?
Yes, for sure.
Which then brings me back to you, because that's what you and I used to do. But so bring me up to speed on you. So how has this impacted your
I mean, I feel like with all the people I'm talking with and my own experience, I feel like we've all been on the various waves. We're going through our own process in terms of acceptance, grief, fear, empowerment. So like it can be all over the map. It has been for me. So, I definitely had the very common trajectory of, I think it's a thing, or I'm hearing about something, but it's not affecting my life, going about my life. Then I'm like, oh, I guess this is really like something's really happening in the world, but it's not going to affect me. I'm not going to get sick. No big deal. Still not afraid of it. Then having the like, whoa, this is a real thing, instantly being super afraid for my parents, feeling like they were in a danger age group before I really knew much about, and not to say that I'm some expert, I'm not in any way, just meaning educating myself over the last number of weeks and days through the credible resources and contacts that I have in my own expanded circle. Then feeling more at ease when my parents, I feel like, got on board, and started to like listen. There's that funny meme of the irony of now I'm yelling at my parents not to go out. The ironic like flip of my teenage years, something like that. And I said, that's very true. And I mean, I joke when I say, oh, I'm yelling at my parents, but really just feeling for them and feeling like I want them to be safe and healthy.
My dad, that's my dad.
Yes.
Dad.
Yeah. And
He's been on the receiving end of, okay, what are you doing? And yeah.
yeah. And so anyway, but having that and then getting to that place of, okay, I feel a little bit safer now that I feel like my family's on board. We're all sort of on the same level of acceptance and vigilance and all of that, but still not knowing a lot. Then having a few days of or a couple days of real strength and again getting into what I can do to be of service, right? I'm doing my part to not contribute to the spread, and how can I be of service? How can I do that? So doing online classes, I've hosted a bunch of different things, all the things that we do, this type of stuff. Then I had a couple of days, one day where it really hit me, where I was afraid, like really afraid. And then the next day I was depressed as a result. I felt depressed. I felt like I needed to really sleep more. What those 2 days did for me was to check me in terms of, this is a new time. Like, even if we intellectually can go, this is a new time, new normal, life is so different. I think even for someone like me who lives day in and day out in life coaching and all of this work that we do to grow and be spiritually balanced and connected and all of the things, right? Even then I was like, oh, okay, my bandwidth is genuinely a lot lower. And so I needed to really, and I instantly put in my self-care practices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I instantly was like, Facebook is currently a toxic force for me. So I'm only going to go on there to post and share. And I'm not going to be scrolling and doing that. Like, I sort of really rigorously cut myself off from that instantly. I started blogging again, which is a healthy creative outlet for me. Resting, like, so all of those things that are in my self-care regimen, I went and did super, super hardcore. And so that immediately sort of helped take me out of that fear slump.
Yep.
But I'm kind of intense. You know me. I'll do it. Like, I'm like, I'll fucking do it. Pardon my French, but like, yeah. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
That was my trajectory, and I share it in detail because I hope that people can see themselves in my sharing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Just it's such an interesting thing because depending on our individual situation, right? Like whether we've been sick, whether we're on the front lines as a nurse, whether we're an older person who has to, from the beginning take this more seriously, whether you're someone like me who, I think similar to you, first, I mean, the media it was stirring up such a frenzy, an overblown fear frenzy.
Yep.
That the first email I sent out to the hacked community was, I believe that the media has overblown the fear around this, because I still to this day think the media overblew the the fear response. Not that this wasn't something that we had to take very seriously.
Right.
Was going to be something that we have to respect and be diligent, and it's going to change things. And when you saw kind of the mass lines at Costco that first week, kind of
right,
it was just it was clear that there was this energetic kind of response that was disproportionate and destructive as opposed
sure,
to constructive. And so how do we stay kind of in the present moment, in that sweet spot of kind of respect and vigilance and wisdom of appreciating what's the best information that we have right now, so I can make the best calls right now. And moment to moment, things were changing so quickly that it was just like every moment was a new thing. And then, I mean, if you were someone who got sick or someone who is a doctor or a nurse, I mean, the paths that people were kind of thrusted on were wildly different and wildly intense.
yeah,
And that's the thing about this, that we kind of have all had our own extreme wild ride, and not to compare them, because obviously if someone's been sick, it's a very different, intense, scary, horrific situation. If you're someone who's a nurse or a doctor, very different, intense, scary, horrific
absolutely,
situation. I stay rooted in an incredibly grateful
yep,
place where I've been Pam's volume is very low. All right. Is that better? If I talk now, is that better? My
It's the
dad just,
same.
Pam's volume is very low. Is that better? Better or worse? 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 Same? I'll just pull closer. That better? Is that better, Pop? All right. I don't know, but now Melanie's frozen. I don't know what I did. Melanie will become unfrozen soon. There
I
you go.
froze. I'm good though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll come back at some point.
Yeah. But yeah, but it's interesting. So I stay, I mean, I feel like I have been in this incredibly cushioned, parachuted situation.
Sure, sure.
I've not been sick. I've had, I mean, the biggest challenges that I've had have just been my personal development, right?
Mm-hmm.
Facing some of the other, soft spots that
Mm-hmm.
this has lovingly forced me to unexpectedly face, right?
Yeah.
The, being quarantined with my husband and my children in an unexpected situation, which is going to put more pressure and intensification around the work that I'm doing interpersonally. That's been
Mm-hmm.
the hardest thing. And so like, how
Absolutely.
freaking lucky am I? It's like I have no, I mean, and I know you share that. We're both
Mhm.
so rooted in gratitude,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And it's just interesting because depending on where someone is sitting, they've got such vastly different challenges afoot. And so to talk more generally about like the toolbox of self-care, like the things that we gonna want to go back to the basics in these moments, and how do we practice when we are scared, or
Yeah.
when, like, so when you felt yourself getting scared, can
Mm-hmm.
you go into a deeper place around that? Like, when
Yeah. Well,
were you aware of it, and then
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The whole navigating of fear and the skill set around fear
mm,
is something we can use in any scenario.
mhm,
And so, honestly, the first thing that we do is we physically feel it. We feel it. I mean, however it manifests in your body, whether it's a closing of the throat, whether it's a tightness of the chest, whether your head feels pressure, whether you feel heat, whether you feel tension in your muscles, like it really can manifest so many different ways for so many people. It's unique, I think, for each person's body.
mhm,
So getting and I what I love about this gratuitous experience that we're all sharing on top of course the shared nature of that, but that's a different topic. So I won't go there yet, but um the positive opportunity, we have so many opportunities to practice this awareness. So because it's such a triggering environment for so many, and we're probably going to be on these sort of this sine wave of ups and downs, and maybe not, maybe people will get to a super chill place. We are very resilient beings, so I'm open to that not being the reality. My guess is that most people will be feeling this way.
mhm,
And so every time we hit those slumps and we have a fear sort of bring us down, or some kind of fear thought, is we can feel it first in our body.
mm,
Then I would invite people to pause, to pause and breathe, to create some space, to slow down, to like physically recenter first, even if it's just a single breath. Maybe it's multiple breaths, maybe it's a meditation, but taking that physical cue and then physically recentering first, then hopefully trying to and hopefully identifying the root thought, sort of the idea that you're feeling afraid of.
mm,
So, is there some sentence? Is there some specific thing that we are attached to, that we are having trouble letting go of? That, it is so. And the next thing on the list, and just I'm going a little bit quickly, just for a second, but stay with me, is that once we sort of have an idea of, oh yeah, I'm afraid of, I don't want to be in quarantine for a year, or I don't want to be in quarantine for 3 months, or whatever it is that we're in resistance to, or I don't want my loved ones to get sick and die. These are all totally and completely understandable fears and normal. And so that's the next thing on the list, is to first, at the very start of identifying that thought process or that cycling fear, that cycling anxiety, is to validate that it is normal that that is happening.
Yeah.
A lot of people judge that they can't keep it together, or their brain goes somewhere else, when really it's normal. It's totally normal. So validate yourself, breathe again, right? Slow down. And then from there, we can start to really consider, is there a solution to what I'm freaking out about? Is there, and if there is, cool, we can start to take that that solution. Maybe it's a communication. Maybe there's something that we can't control. So maybe we go into our skill of spiritual surrender. So it depends on what the solution might be to help us release that thought. But
the first step is to accept it, to validate it, be like, yeah, because feelings are feelings. So
mm-hmm.
you're having a feeling,
Yeah.
loving the feeling, accepting, validating, even though the feeling is not comfortable and you don't like love that you're feeling that way, to love the part of you that's just feeling that. Like,
Yeah.
I like to think of myself very often in like a third person kind of way. And I like to think of myself as little Pammy.
I know. I love your video the other day. Little Pammy.
Little Pammy. Little Pammy. Because most of the stuff that I get worked up about, it's just little Pammy stuff. Like
little
so,
Pammy.
like resisting. Pammy wants to go out and play. And Pammy wants to be with her friends. Pammy, all those things, right?
Yep.
To just love the part of yourself that is feeling that. And just that spaciousness, that love, that care does give you the space around it. And then like you're saying, staying present with it and in the present moment right now, and then asking empowering questions like, well, what are possible solutions?
Yep.
And or what are the root beliefs underneath it? Are those true? Like a thought, like little Pammy would be like, I will not be okay if I have to stay inside for like that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Like, you may not be happy. It's not what you want.
Right.
Be okay, like little Pammy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's normal, by the way, too, to not want this stuff to happen. You know what I mean? So even though little Pammy is rearing up, it's again, the validation of that, the loving of that is, I think, a big deal, because if we can't love that, if we can't acknowledge and accept that we're human, and that part of it, the humanity of that. And then we have the opportunity to implement our skills.
Yeah.
And, I talk a lot about skills. It sounds so unsexy and uncool. And
sexy.
and I just am like, but man, if skills, one of the main things I've thought this whole time is, how in the F do people without skills do it? I don't know. No idea. No idea. And so
compassion.
Yeah, like
compassion. Like, thank
so much compassion.
I'm so skillful through this.
Oh my gosh.
This is a monumental shit show. Like this is like, wow, like, yay, humanity. Like, well played. Well played.
Yeah. So we have the opportunity to use our skills, to either use our skills or to start learning new skills. So like, this is a huge opportunity for, as you were saying, personal development for sure. And that, I believe deeply that when we are in that work, we are being a part of the bigger solution. No question about that. If we can be in love and get ourselves back to love and peace, we are absolutely radiating that and impacting so much more than we could realize. So then there's maybe a question or a conversation about, well, what are those skills? What can people actually do? You know what I mean?
Let's talk about skills. So skillfully navigating fear. Let's do it.
Gosh, it's like, where do you start? So many things. I mean, one of the things that I wrote down first, because we were talking about the fear thought, is the idea of redirecting your thinking. So and I'm not talking about avoidant behavior. I'm not talking about, because we've already gone through the part of the process where we're identifying the physical cues, we're breathing, we're slowing down, we're recentering, we're identifying these thoughts that are not serving us, we're asking empowering questions to challenge, is it true? Yes, it is, or no, it's not, whatever. And then we can really interrupt those thoughts that are not serving us. We can literally interrupt that and redirect our thinking, whether it is to read something empowering, whether it's to connect with someone, that is a positive energy in our life, whether it's to breathe and meditate, whether it's to feel our butt in the chair, you know what I mean? Whether it's to, I see Sage joined, whether it's to do some breath work.
Mm-hmm.
It can be so many different things. It can be obviously to exercise, get out in nature. There's a ton of different ways to interrupt that spiral.
Mm-hmm. And I think what is feeling like I need to share right now. My shirt literally says "Love is the answer," and it's like fear versus love. Like fear is kind of like a free fall, and love is like a geyser energetically. And one of the things I've said for a long time, like people always ask, like, if there's one thing that everyone could hear, what would the thing be? And like, love is real. Like, love is real. Light is real. Love is real. And Melanie, I've told you this before. You are someone that when I have my own kind of crises, you are someone that has always been such a source of love in my life. And actually, everybody on the call right now has to be those people that, we're so lucky that we have people in our life that have shown up so consistently radiating love that in those moments when you start to have a crisis of fear, thinking about someone who has always been a source of love, and the only other person on this call that I feel like calling out right now, not on the call, is my grandmother. And my cousin Jay is on the call, and my dad is on the call, so my gram. But thinking about a person who has been a source of love in that moment will help flip the polarity. Like if you're stuck in a fear spiral, in a place of despair, where you're getting like sucked into a black hole, where you're disconnected from love, disconnected from faith, disconnected from hope. If you picture somebody's face and feel the way that that smiling face makes you feel, that will flip the polarity and hold you, and then you'll start to feel a geyser of love up, which will then help, like you say, flip it, and then help you skillfully from a place of power navigate wisely, bravely, lovingly, whatever the situation is, because we all got some situations to navigate. Like this is not a stick your head in the sand, Pollyanna kind of moment.
No. And honestly, when we do those types of things, like that type of exercise or any number of things, it might allow space for our feelings to bubble up. And so honor those feelings. Absolutely honor those feelings. I am such a champion of people honoring their feelings, not as a loophole to get out of being, a strong person. Oh,
Graham!
yes.
It's Grammy. This
Yay.
is sorry, but like you were saying, honoring feelings, not as a
yeah. And so that as a key skill, and you know what I mean? Because people can think about, if they feel sadness coming up, you know what I mean? Or they feel, like to begin.
Fear, are those other feelings, like that's the real thing. Like that's why I cry so much, because like underneath the fear,
yeah,
there's a lot of sadness that just hadn't gotten processed yet.
Yeah. And the idea also of this anticipatory grief, I mean, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything like that, but just understanding the nature of grieving as well, just grieving the loss of plans, the loss of freedom, the loss of the sense of certainty. I wrote a blog the other day and I basically talked about feeling like the, illusion of control has been ripped from all of our minds. So we're in this really feeling insecure place. I would guess, a lot of people are in that sort of, oh my God, I don't really, and so that.
There's been so much insecurity and instability on these really huge, like systematic, like levels. I mean, I don't think anyone's lived through this. I mean, 9/11 is the closest
And
analogous.
yeah,
That didn't have the profound, it was like, it was catastrophic, and the grief and the fear, but it was very different than this.
yeah. Another thing to think about in this type of experience is a deep practice of patience, because so much is uncertain. So much is, we want it to be certain. Certainty is very seductive. Just saying. I'm just saying. And with my life coaching clients, I've had that conversation before outside of pandemic, outside of pandemic life, but just in sort of regular life, when we're inside of a challenge. And a client might come to me a week after some big thing happens, and they're suddenly super certain about the next steps, and it's always a red flag.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a red flag.
It is. I see that a lot with people in my own life. And it is a red flag. And to really kind of acknowledge how our brain does that as like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And it's actually not helpful. And it doesn't exude actual confidence it's like, yeah, no. And that's our leadership, sadly, right now.
Yeah.
That's
That is
not to get
abs-
political. And just to really let yourself sink into just how vulnerable and scary and shitty it feels to not have that next foothold or handhold. I always love the rock wall analogy, like for life, that we really want to have strong footholds and strong handholds because we're trying to get somewhere. Like we have this vision of where we want to go. And the vision that our brain, our ego has is never going to be the full kind of divine picture of what's
right.
really going on in the collective, whatever God's got in store, whatever you believe that force is. It's never something that our brain is going to be able to perceive. It's just not.
Yeah. And it's such an opportunity to practice getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, which sounds super cliche. I get it. It's just such a powerful skill to have. I mean, I think of, and this is, I haven't even started, I haven't even mentioned yet the most core fundamental belief and faith that I live with in this is that it's all for us. Like, I believe deeply that everything that happens has positive value. Everything is for us in some way. And so in being in that rigorous practice, that also requires patience, because sometimes we cannot see the positivity or the positive value or the benefit to humanity or our own individual lives or our family members or whatever till much, much later.
And sometimes never. Like one of the things you and I haven't had time, you would be amused. I've been working with a coach who's basically ripped away all my spiritual platitudes.
Good.
The session I had with him, where he was like, maybe not, Pam. What if not? What if actually this is just going to be awful and then it's just going to be over? And we may never. And I was like, fuck you, Mark. But it's like, because I know that what we are is so much bigger than just one of us, right? That, I mean, there's going to be people for whom this is just gonna suck and then it's going to be over. I mean, we're hearing the stories left and right, and they are sobering, heavy realities. Like, the reality is there are people who are in situations that just absolutely suck, and,
Yep.
and that's going to be it. And it's just going to be that for that life, right? And so knowing or feeling connected to something bigger than ourselves in this moment is a really powerful practice, or however we can find that connection to something bigger, because there's going to be a lot of stories, a lot of people who their experience of this is not going to end well. There's not going to be some silver lining that they are, or even their immediate family is going to be able to connect with. And there is something much, much bigger that I do believe ultimately life is lifing. And I do believe in these big macro and micro kind of holistic kind of swings, high and low, high and low. And in the deeper kind of peace that I've found is in this surrender and this acceptance of knowing nothing even within that. Like, maybe within that humanity is screwed, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, yes, it's helpful to stay positive. Yeah. Just to share, Mel, you would be so amused at some of the coaching sessions I've had lately where I'm no longer allowed to say stuff like that.
Ah!
I just have to just sit and really let myself feel the negatives, because my coping skills have been the skills that you and I are talking about, which are great, really fabulous, much better than going out and getting drunk or, just tearing off into your loved ones. I mean, our coping skills are great. And people like you and I have to make sure too, and the people that are on this call have to make sure that we're not using them as another level of not feeling our feelings, that we need
Yeah.
high on a whole nother level and screaming, be angry. That's one of the things I've realized a lot over the last week, that I've had a lot of unprocessed anger
Mm-hmm.
that I never, and a lot of it was at myself. I was so surprised. No offense, Dad. I thought a lot of it was at you and Mom. Like, it turned out a lot of my unprocessed anger was actually at myself, because I was such a fierce little Pammy. I abused myself as much as I was abusing everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really angry at myself. And I hadn't released that. And I was like, huh, I was driving and I was like, that's unexpected. It turns out I'm angry at myself. So it's just, all of this stuff is just fascinating. It's been a fascinating, it's like unearthing,
Yeah.
the onion, that there's always more underneath there, and just asking empowering questions and going deeper and then letting whatever come up and loving that.
I am a huge believer with you, of course. By the way, I love that you shared that. I love that you are in the depth of the work that you are in. Duh. I mean, hello. This is everyone here. I acknowledge all of you being on this call and being a part of this community because of the depth of the work that happens in communities like this. Why I'm acknowledging that and where I'm going with this is that it's also okay for those of us who are fierce doers of the work, right? Of our own stuff. It is also okay to use our skills that we may be challenging, right? With you and your coaching sessions with Mark, that you're getting rid of these spiritual platitudes or whatever that before made you feel more at ease, gave you a reprieve from fear and anxiety or whatever, gave you a reprieve from the quote unquote work, AKA it's okay to take breaks doing the work. It's essential, I think, especially so. Yeah, yeah. And I know that you are doing that. It's more that I want to make sure we say that on the heels of a share like yours, because fuck yeah, girl, I'm all about it. I love that you're doing that work and you have the space to do that and you have the energy and strength to do that. And for someone who's listening who might not be where you are, I want them to know that it's okay if you need to take a break and you need to use that reframe of it's all for us, you can.
Yeah.
Do it.
Absolutely.
So that's, I think, important, because I work with a lot of really intense people who always want to be in the work. And I've been like that myself for many years. And so learning that gentleness with myself, learning how to honor my feelings and then allow myself to rest. That has been really huge in my own ability to have sustainable growth, contribution, all of the things, right? So it's all, for me, it's a balance of all of those things. Some days I'm in the work and I'm not looking away. Other days I'm resting. Other days I'm a ball of light. I'm a ball of light every day, but even when I'm completely depressed, I'm a ball of light. I believe that deeply as well, but that's another conversation. But yeah, but you know what I mean? So I just want to make sure that humanity is in this conversation too, because
process of wherever process, and knowing that this journey of development is a very personal one, and whatever resonates, like from where you are, right? To like allow yourself to use things that are as ladders. One of the things I say is use things as ladders, not crutches, and just keep owning that leveling up. And you can feel it. You can feel whether something is lifting you up in the moment. And like, honestly, if you feel like something is lifting you up in that moment and is going to help you see a little bit clearer for that next moment, do it. And just notice then from that next moment, are you getting higher? Are you continuing to lift up? Or actually, did this end up actually lowering me? Which is the thing that you and I talk about a lot too, is just used to, using things as a crutch. Sometimes it actually can end up lowering you, but learning how to feel that in yourself and own your process, like be the hero of your own story, right? Like that's a great place to start.
Oh, so true. One of the things I've also learned is to slow down. I've always been super intense, and I've always been a hard worker, right? Intense little Melzy. You're talking about little Pammy. I'm like little Melzy. My gram would always call me Melzy. It always makes it like warms my heart so much to every time I say Melzy. I'm like, oh, Gram, I love you. Yeah, and learning how to balance my intensity. You know what I mean? And I'm not the person who's at risk of being lazy.
Right.
Not really. I say that to a lot of my clients as well, where I'm like, when they're worried about taking breaks and resting, and again, not to oversell the taking breaks. If you are on this call and you struggle more with getting in action, then this is not the piece of information for you. But I say a lot, like, you are not at risk of being lazy. You are not. You are at risk of burning yourself out, from my knowledge of you. And this is me speaking to one of my clients and myself.
That's the thing. I remember, I'm sure we've mentioned that Brene Brown talked about, like, people tend to fall into one of two buckets when they're under stress. Either they become hyperactive or they withdraw. And maybe people fall into different buckets depending on where they are in their life. So it might not just be like your entire life, you're one or the other, but just being able to recognize what your own predisposition is. And then that opposite action skill is a DBT skill that's helpful because it applies to whichever the case is. Whatever your impulse is, if your impulse is to go, 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 then rest. If your impulse is to rest, 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 then go.
Yeah.
The opposite action skill is a good one to just be like, whichever one is your default, just do the other for a little while and try that on for size.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that, the fight, flight, or freeze. It's the raising of our consciousness of ourselves, the raising of our consciousness of our loved ones that are close to us, how are they responding right now? They're under the same duress, pressure, fear, stress, whatever, as the rest of the world. If someone's responding in a unusual way or a not ideal way, we can try to practice compassion for others as well as ourselves as we try to, again, practice our skills and again, not be perfect throughout this, and yet be intentional and be committed to a certain level of integrity. So if I go to what ultimately really helps us, it's not that perfectionist execution, and not, of course, like, that's super hello, not perfectionistly perfectly doing all of this or navigating each day and emotion, but rather being in integrity no matter what happens. So if we get out of integrity, cleaning it up. It's just like you shared on your Facebook Live the other day, where you had a breakdown with Roger and then you went and you cleaned it up with him. So that is what will keep us emotionally strong and expand our limited bandwidth in this time, just to help us be that much more equipped to handle the times when we feel more pressure and more fear.
Yeah, it's such a process, and loving the process. And that's why for me, I always have my threes, but wisdom, bravery, and compassion. Those are the three basic touch points that I always go back to, in any moment, no matter what the stressful situation, no matter how unclearly I may be kind of getting turned all upside down. I'm like, wait, what is the best wisdom, the best bravery, and the best compassion that I can practice right now? And then I just do that.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And then I trust that's going to at least be somewhat in a direction that's going to elevate the next moment. And that's definitely kind of the basics. And being brave is tricky because this is this big, overwhelming stuff that oftentimes it clouds our vision. Like, we don't even realize that we're not being brave. Like, that's the thing, like the awareness of it, like when you were talking about feeling it in your body. and really asking those questions and kind of calling ourselves out. Like, wait, am I without realizing it? Am I being afraid right now? And that's when I get in my heart and I'm like, in my heart, what does this feel like, love? Or does this not feel like love? Because
Yeah.
something feels like growth, something feels like love, and something feels like you're going in the opposite direction. And that feeling and trusting that in my heart is kind of the go-to thing. Like that's my thing.
Yeah, that again, back to the framing of it as a skill. We
Mm.
can practice that, practice that. Is this love? Is this intuition? Is this divine guidance? Whatever words you want to use,
Mm.
that is something we have to kind of hone our own awareness of, I think, in ourselves. I don't feel like I was instantaneously aware of divine guidance. Like, dang. I was like, I'm kind of trusting my gut, but what is that? Is that am I, for those people who are earlier on this path, but it has been the absolute most important skill set. I mean, it's hard to actually say most important of anything, but it's been one of the super critical skill sets in my whole life in terms of helping me get through fear, helping me make decisions under pressure, and and always and being ferociously committed to that. You know what I mean? Ferociously committed to taking actions when I feel my intuition sort of ping. Like, I've been in this practice for the last, year, and I've always wanted to do this, but I never really got around to it. But when I think of someone,
Mhm.
if I think of them, I immediately reach out. If I think of them and I don't reach out, and I think of them again, I instantaneously reach out because I'm like, something's up. So I'm
Mhm.
trusting sort of in that. It's a simple practice. Even like, I'm taking a walk and I get a subtle sort of feeling of, I'm going to turn this way
Mhm.
down this road.
Mhm.
Just who knows, but it's a simple practice, is a simple way to start touching that in ourselves,
Mhm.
and then we can be a little bit more practiced for when we're in these more challenging times. um
Did you ever read the Sonia Coquette Trust Your Vibes book?
no, I
Oh,
will though.
that's the book. Like that's
What's
the
it
book.
called?
It's called Trust Your Vibes.
Trust your vibes.
Book entirely about what you're talking about. And it's a book that's funny because when a friend of mine recommended it to me, it was very early on in my journey.
Hmm.
And had I realized that it was a book kind of technically written by a psychic, I would never have gotten it. I never would have read it. And in fact, like the introduction, when she's describing that that's kind of what she, is what she does, if the book hadn't been recommended by such a dear trusted friend, I would have stopped reading right there because I was
Yeah.
still in that very kind of scientific place in my brain where I just was so disconnected from any kind of real intuitive knowing. I still just equated any kind of psychic stuff with just bullshit, just complete snake oil
Right.
bullshit. Like I didn't, but that book is it's just a very beautiful, subtle kind of opening to the exact thing that you're talking about. And I highly recommend it.
That's awesome. Before we end, before we run out of time, I love that you brought up being brave, because that can be a really great phrase. I love that phrase, and for people who are maybe clouded by fear, right? People who aren't necessarily as practiced at reading their own intuition, right? All these things that we're talking about are things we can start practicing now, and get better and better at, and all that stuff. For those people who are like, well, I want to be brave, but what does that even look like? For me, it's it can show up in simple ways, like communicating with my family in a way I normally wouldn't have,
Mhm.
right? Like having a bit of bravery to step into leadership in ways that I wouldn't have. right? So like my online presence, for example, my brand, as it were, I have very rarely historically stepped into more divisive conversations online. I've had a very pretty, solid set of pillars, and they're badass, awesome pillars. I love and I stand by all the content that I've ever put out there and all that, because it certainly showcases my growth and story as a person. But anyway, why I bring this up is it's something I was working on pre-pandemic, is rising into leadership in these divisive conversations, being more of an activist where I am called. And that was always is a fear place for me. And so this, interestingly, in the pandemic experience, I'm recognizing opportunities for that, where I'm like, okay, how can I use my voice and my communication skills, my ability to craft the written word and the spoken word, and use it in as expert or as inexpert and just, way as I can to be brave in this area where I want to and I think I can be of service. So that's one way I'm being brave, for example. You know, um, even as simple as giving a person a 6-foot berth when I'm walking around them. That feels awkward as fuck. Some people, I think, are not maybe doing that because of that social awkwardness. Right. So I feel, for me, it feels like a little piece of bravery, if that makes sense, where I'm actually walking around someone. My old little Melzy wanting people to like her, wanting people to not think that she doesn't like them, like it's very, sounds ridiculous, but I normally would never, you know what I mean? Like I would be kind to someone as I walk by them. So now I'm like, okay, I'm being kind, but I'm being kind and this is what it looks like, even though it feels really weird. So anyway, I just wanted to speak to this idea, this concept of what being brave might look like right now.
Even just being brave is taking a breath.
Yeah.
Just one breath. That you have the patience and the spaciousness and the support to just take a breath. That's bravery. That's bravery.
It is.
Pause and take a breath. Take a big inhale and then relax, let it go. And that takes bravery.
It does, especially for those people who are like, I can't let go. I can't stop working. I can't, it's going to fall apart. Yeah. Like
I can't.
Lots of that. Yeah.
Any sneaky fixed mindset, any I can't. It's brave to at least take one breath and settle in a little bit deeper into whatever that fear is, because behind every I can't is a fear and a limiting belief. And to just take that brave space to look at it and let yourself feel whatever the feeling is and get close to it, that's bravery.
I agree. Absolutely. Oh my God. Amen, my friend. I wrote on my list, breathe in giant letters, breathe, slow down. Obviously, also wash your hands, don't touch your face.
I'm such a face toucher. Like
I know, me too. I'm like, huh.
I know.
I mean,
questions. I know Shelby and Sage and Jay are on live. If anyone has questions, I think you can unmute yourself. I don't even know if you can unmute yourself. But I love you guys.
I love you
Shelby,
guys too.
You are a nurse on the front lines, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you're a new nurse. Like Shelby just graduated like in the last year, so it's like this new, like diving right into the fire.
Wow.
Brave soul, you, and I know Shelby well, so I know how brave and awesome Shelby is. And Sage, of course, being our breathwork fearless leader, and Jay is my cousin who just put my grandma on.
I love that.
This is who's on. So you guys, Sage just unmuted himself. Sage,
I just want to say thank you. No, thank you, ladies. You're both powers of example. I'm as you probably know, like, this is just hitting everybody at the same time. And so helpers and healers need helpers and healers. And just living in it and having someone talk about what they're doing is incredibly validating. Because if I'm not responsible for my own process in this time, then I'm getting it on somebody. So I just wanted you to know I'm walking it out with you. I'm so grateful for both you ladies. You're such a power of example. Appreciate you.
I'm grateful for all the leadership that you're providing during this and the gifts. Every night, 6 p.m., I'm breathing with you. So what a gift that is. So yeah, so everybody, thank you so much for going to share this. And Melanie, you are a gift. So melaniecurtis.com, you do coaching, you're an inspiration, and you dear friends. So thank you so much.
Yeah, anybody, please reach out anytime. I'm
Yeah.
grateful to be here. I love you all.
Lots of love. Thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah, bye guys.
Bye.